Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday his troops had strengthened positions in Russia's Kursk region nearly 2 weeks into their incursion, and called for bold decisions by Kyiv's allies to allow long-range strikes. Ukraine says it has seized more than 80 settlements over 150 square km in
It's
Kursk.
Bradley, and it's one of the most effective weapons Ukraine has ever received. And now you'll see that for yourself. The place you see now is the hideouts of the Russian occupiers. The attack begins with a targeted strike on one of the positions. The AFU has a clear plan. Bradley and his assault team are moving in. Using the Bushmaster cannon, he sizzles the buildings one by one. It's impossible to respond under such fire. At the same time, Ukrainian special forces are moving in. Bradley's covering. The operation is coordinated by a thermal imaging drone. A few moments later, the positions came under the control of the AFU. But the Russians have managed to call in reinforcements. Bradley is ready for this as well. A shot from the Tau turns the occupiers' meat pot into dust and clears the way for retreat. At this point, the FPV operator spotted the Russian stronghold and relayed the coordinates to the APC commander. Bradley advances to the position and begins the attack. Under that kind of fire, no one would have been able to lift their heads. The walls of this house are cotton wool for an American APC. Then a Ukrainian combat drone arrives and puts a stop to it. The combat mission was brilliantly executed. The Russians again launch a failed attack, but this APC manages to escape. At the same time, Bradley goes to the aid of his fellow soldiers and meets a meat pan of the occupants. It opens fire from a 25mm cannon. It pierces the armor of the Russian APC, and it rolls into a pit. But notice this. This is an APC-82. It is equipped with a 30mm gun, which is also very fast. And look at that, they're also firing. Bradley was in great danger, but apparently the skill of the crew played a part, and Bradley came out of that duel victorious. Another duel. Now it's between Bradley and the Russian tank. Bradley locks onto the target in his thermal imaging scope and fires a Tau missile. The missile hits the Russian tank and the crew spots the Russian drone. Bradley doesn't have a lock on these targets. There's nothing left to do but shoot. The gunner's skill allows him to shoot down the drone and save the equipment and crew. Bradley came to stop the Russian infantry, which is crossing the field to storm Ukrainian positions. Even if the Russians reach another planting, it changes nothing. The cannon cuts down trees like thin branches. They offer no cover. This is an incident from Avdiivka. Ukrainian assault troops called for reinforcements. The Bradley IFV easily suppresses the Russian advance. And even if the Russians manage to occupy a building, there's no sense in hiding in it. Brad's cannon will riddle the building's walls. If an enemy tank or armored personnel carrier is at a great distance from Bradley, the Ukrainians use anti-tank missiles, with which the armored personnel carrier is armed. Bradleys often help repel these bloody assaults. Under the cover of night, the Russians bring their APC to the positions. At dawn, a Bradley arrives and starts drilling holes into the Russian bucket. Gradually, the Bradley closes in on the Russian APC. These shots became fatal for him. Now it was the infantry's turn. The same operation was carried out in New York. Under Bradley's cover, Ukrainian special forces are moving into position. there's information that there may be an enemy in the building. Bradley wipes him out, then the special forces go in. The AFU throws a grenade into the basement. Then we see a massive explosion. Positions are being cleared one by one. All this is happening under fire from the Bushmaster cannon. The operation has been successfully executed. The infantry and Bradley are leaving New York. This is the Pokrovsk direction. The occupiers' position is right here. Take a look at this. Nearby are the occupiers' trenches from which they had to retreat because of the excellent work of the Ukrainian mortars. Just look at how many holes there are. And when the enemy is at a disadvantage, Bradley arrives and wipes out the Russian position. Some sources say this is also a Bradley. Its gun is incredibly intimidating. The buildings of the invaders are crumbling under its assault. There's no resistance to this APC. They do whatever they want and escape successfully. And at this very moment, the target was destroyed just over 2,000 meters away. The Russians will fall into a trap set by Bradley. We see a Russian APC carrying reinforcements through a populated area. All seems calm. The infantry dismounts, leaving the armored vehicle. The Ukrainians quickly respond and send a Bradley to intercept. Bradley locks on target. Seconds to complete annihilation. Bradley opens fire. Direct hits on the APC. The Americans' cannon performs perfectly. An armor-piercing round hits the fuel tanks. Another penetration. Bradley deserves a like. Bradley's advanced electronics can anticipate target movement and fire slightly ahead. See how it works. The Russian APC is trying to escape. Notice how much distance there is between them. Bradley opens fire and turns the meat pot to ash. The Bushmaster cannon is unbelievable.
The forces of the 79th Brigade, conducting reconnaissance in the Donetsk area, had their drone fly over an open field. The Ukrainian drone operators spotted a lone Russian soldier, bravely walking on the road with no cover or place to hide. Upon identifying the target, the 79th Brigade immediately dropped an artillery shell. The first shell missed the soldier, but they did not give up and dropped a second shell to cut off the soldier's path. The soldier still miraculously survived. The soldier, in pain and unable to continue, realized he couldn't survive. The Russian soldier took a radio from his uniform and sent a farewell message to his comrades. After saying his goodbyes, he loaded his gun and ended his life. It was a brave and courageous end for the soldier. The continuous video captures an interesting moment where a Russian ground drone is scouting the forest edge in the Donetsk region. The operator of the ground drone seemed unable to fully control the device, as it continuously moved aimlessly, eventually falling into a low-lying hollow from which it couldn't escape. Consequently, it became easy prey for another drone. When a Ukrainian FPV drone spotted the Russian ground drone, it executed a direct attack, completely destroying the target. The destruction of the Russian ground drone not only resulted in material loss, but also potentially impacted their information gathering and reconnaissance operations. This event could create a sense of confusion and tension within the enemy ranks. The surprise and failure in reconnaissance activities might lead to a decline in morale and motivation among the Russian troops. We also witness a small makeshift house stands in a secluded forest, with no cover or place to hide in case of danger. The Ukrainian drone confirmed the target and attacked the house. This attack obliterated the small dwelling, showcasing the formidable power of drones in destroying targets with high precision and great strength. Upon receiving reports of Russian soldiers at an exit in the Donetsk Valley, a drone immediately attacked, blocking the sole escape route. Abandoned vehicles of the Russian army were also blown up by Ukrainian artillery, completely destroying the enemy's equipment. The abandoned houses in open areas are always a top target for the Ukrainian army, as they provide safe havens for lost Russian soldiers. The images above depict a devastating destruction carried out by Ukraine's advanced FPV equipment. The trenches were also targeted for destruction in this mission, with a brutal attack showing no mercy towards the Russian invaders. Next is a moment from the attack by Ukraine against the invaders, the Kazakhs, Russians. This attack took place in a secluded forest with rugged terrain. The continuous sounds of bombs highlight the tension and danger of the conflict, as the Ukrainian drones demonstrate their effective capability to strike ground targets, making the attacks uncontrollable for the Russian army. The precision and continuous attack capability of FPV drones severely impact the Russian strongholds. These attacks have caused significant destruction, igniting and annihilating the Russian military positions. This not only results in material losses, but also reduces the combat effectiveness of the enemy. A house that seemed to have been previously destroyed received a secret message indicating that Russian soldiers were hiding inside. Upon receiving the attack order, the drone operator targeted the house. This location was advantageous, with no obstructions allowing for targeted artillery fire on the positions around the house. As the drone approached, the images sent back revealed a strange device mounted on the roof, making it easily detectable. Ukraine launched a missile directly at the device, resulting in a large explosion that sent debris flying off the roof. The powerful blast caused a growing fire, with thick smoke rising. Next to the burning house, a soldier's silhouette appeared, casually walking towards a nearby tree. All of this was captured by the Ukrainian UAV. On the screen is the desolate scene after a brutal battle. The entire city of Kharkiv enveloped in the smell of gunpowder, with all the houses in the city destroyed, presenting an extremely tragic sight. The next footage was recorded in a small residential area where Russian soldiers were secretly operating at these positions. Upon detecting the Russian soldiers, the FPV crew continuously bombed and destroyed the houses and the Russian soldiers. Continuous attacks occurred throughout the city. Without safe shelters, small groups of soldiers fled and ran chaotically outside. Another large-scale attack targeted a makeshift house hidden behind walls and trees. A drone spotted a Russian soldier hurriedly running on a path surrounded by dense foliage. Ukraine immediately attacked and completely eliminated the soldier. Countless houses were destroyed that day, in addition to the increasing number of drones and FPV crews. This fierce attack continued until sunset, with smoke rising intermittently throughout the city. A drone detected 3 Russian soldiers in the process of fleeing. It seemed they had noticed some activity from the Ukrainian side, and the 3 soldiers quickly hid in a group of dry trees nearby. Thinking they could evade Ukraine's surveillance, they were immediately targeted by 2 drones that headed straight for their hiding spot. A large explosion ensued, sending the helmet of the nearest Russian soldier flying, as if his life was taken with it. 2 of the soldiers were destroyed on the spot, while 1 managed to escape. A Ukrainian drone captured footage of a group of Russian soldiers moving through a destroyed village. Initially, the group maneuvered through the streets, avoiding rubble and ruins, then headed towards the local school, which, despite being damaged, still maintained its structure. An FPV drone, equipped with an expanded warhead, was tasked with eliminating the target. The drone flew to the school, passing through destroyed windows and doors, and precisely targeted the position where the Russian soldiers were hiding. The moment of the attack came quickly and unexpectedly. The drone crashed into the building, causing a large explosion that destroyed the second floor of the school. The explosion was loud and powerful, completely obliterating the shelter and causing significant damage to the soldiers inside. This incident also serves as a reminder that even in seemingly safe shelters, such as schools, the enemy is not protected from modern military equipment and tactics. Similarly, in a remote area, an abandoned house in the Kharkiv region, Vovchansk city, a Ukrainian drone detected the traces of a Russian mercenary hiding in the house, along with his comrades. Every movement of the two soldiers was detected by the powerful FPV drone. Recognizing a valuable target, the Ukrainian military quickly maneuvered the drone to approach the abandoned house and immediately dropped a shell into the house, causing the building to collapse, which meant that the two Russian mercenaries were also buried within. A tank was speeding along to avoid the pursuit of the Ukrainian military and their advanced weaponry. Throughout the journey, the driver had to have nerves of steel to maneuver and dodge Ukrainian artillery shells, passing by the wreckage of tanks left behind after a devastating attack. Soon, the Russians would lose another tank on the battlefield. A large explosion occurred, and all its ammunition detonated, turning it into a ball of fire. The drone continued to survey the suburban area and detected signs of life in a dilapidated wooden house. The FPV drone approached the target closely, and on the control screen, 3 Russian soldiers occupying the house could be seen sitting under the ruins of the building, preparing to storm Ukrainian positions. One Russian soldier heard the sound of the Ukrainian drone. The 3 soldiers frantically fired at the Ukrainian drone. However, a high-precision Ukrainian drone, once locked on a target, never misses. It precisely hit the location of the 3 soldiers, taking down 2 of them. The first explosion didn't completely eliminate all 3 Russian soldiers. One seemed severely wounded, clutching his injury in agony and falling unconscious. Another soldier, lightly wounded, quickly fled, leaving his comrade behind. In a forest in the Kharkiv region, a Ukrainian soldier hiding inside a cave suddenly heard a noise and realized it was a soldier in a Russian uniform. Sensing something was amiss, the Ukrainian soldier threw a grenade towards the source of the sound. Once confirmed as the enemy, the Ukrainian soldier continuously fired shots at the target. The Russian soldier seemed to be struggling, fighting for survival. Seeing that the enemy was not yet eliminated, the Ukrainian soldier kept firing at the bushes. To be sure, another grenade was thrown at the Russian soldier. The high-impact bullets were fired, determined not to let any Russian soldier survive. Feeling secure, the Ukrainian soldier approached the target, continuing to fire. It was evident that the Ukrainian soldier spared no bullet for his enemy, and his comrade in the cave didn't hesitate to add a few more shots. A Ukrainian drone captured the moment when a Russian soldier was fleeing towards Pokrovsky on a motorcycle. The Russian soldier was trying to escape quickly, unaware that he had become the target of a Ukrainian drone. He became extremely panicked and lost control of the motorcycle upon realizing he was being pursued by the drone. The soldier's panic caused him to repeatedly fall, and he could not run on his own legs. He was desperately crawling to find a hiding spot to escape the drone's pursuit. The moment the drone hit the Russian soldier, it created an explosion and eliminated him. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone attacked head-on, killing the Russian soldier instantly. The Russian army charged into the Ukrainian trenches towards Liman, with everything arranged to ambush the Ukrainians unexpectedly. All the Russian soldiers were positioning themselves, throwing artillery shells towards the Ukrainian front, while the leader provocatively raised a challenge, unaware that a greater danger was approaching. Suddenly, they were attacked by an FPV drone, and a large explosion jolted the Russian soldiers awake. Ukraine deployed fighter jets directly into their trench where the remaining Russian soldiers were located. Wave after wave of Ukrainian artillery was unleashed, engulfing the Russian army in smoke and fire. During the final artillery strike, Ukraine surged forward to clear the battlefield and claim their victory. Ukrainian fighters moved along the trench, continuously firing at the Russian soldiers, determined not to let any survive. After a thorough search, the bodies of Russian soldiers lay scattered in every corner, completely annihilated. Another video also shows a Ukrainian FPV drone blowing up a Russian T-90 tank near Bakhmut. Footage from the drone reveals a T-72B3M tank that had been abandoned by its crew due to significant damage from previous Ukrainian attacks. To prevent the Russian forces from evacuating near this tank, the Ukrainian military deployed FPV drones to fly toward the Russian tank. These drones were equipped with incendiary grenades and flew through the openings, causing the tank to explode into pieces. A Ukrainian BTR-3 has unleashed chaos on Russian positions in Pivnishna village, Donetsk region, effectively preventing the enemy from establishing a foothold. The armored vehicle's firepower has created a living hell for the Russian forces, disrupting their operations and causing significant disarray. 2 Russian soldiers were fleeing from the pursuit of a Mavic 3 drone. They frantically ran into a cluster of trees, confident that no one would discover them. The Mavic 3 drone mercilessly followed the enemies. However, they did not realize that every move they made was being observed and tracked by the drone from above. The first shell was dropped, followed by the second and third, directly landing on the heads of the 2 Russian soldiers. A dilapidated house surrounded by maple trees was chosen to cover the house in the village of Netailov, in the Donetsk region. The drone approached the house and attacked the nearby cluster of trees. A large explosion occurred, creating a horrific scene. The moment was captured at a 2-story house in the village of Hlibok, in the Kharkiv region. A coordinate was transmitted detecting signs of Russian troops hiding there. Immediately, Ukraine ordered an ambush on the building, and a drone was sent to attack directly into the first-floor window of the abandoned house. A large explosion destroyed the house and buried the invaders. The next footage shows a Ukrainian drone attacking an enemy bunker entrance. The FPV drone flew straight inside, causing a massive explosion that shook the entire bunker. Another attack took place on the second floor of an abandoned school building, where smoke was billowing. Another house was completely demolished by a drone, and every suspicious house was targeted and needed to be attacked by the Ukrainian army. Ukraine was determined not to leave any building untouched, aiming to completely destroy the hiding places of Russian soldiers. This demonstrates Ukraine's strategy, sharpness, and ability to control modern weapons, proving the Russians to be the losers. On the screen is the stunning footage of the attacks between Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian brigades operating in the forest have truly demonstrated this, with the successful use of FPV drones by the air reconnaissance team of the Kursk battalion of the Burovy Brigade, depriving the Russian forces of opportunities to affect Ukrainian frontline positions with artillery support. Although the Russian army often chose forests as their hideouts and attack points, they all had to face the might of the drones. The footage in the video is evidence of this. A surveillance drone observing from above, an FPV drone crashing directly into that hut. This attack was just a warning from Ukraine. Immediately after, a shell was dropped from above, and the attack was so large that, from a distance, one could see smoke engulfing the tiny hut. Every temporary base constructed by the Russian army in the forest had to endure being turned into rubble after Ukraine's bombing runs, with fire consuming the wooden structures, creating a truly horrific scene. In the pursuit in the Donetsk region, Ukrainian scouts used drones to hunt down the hiding Russian soldiers. At one moment, an FPV drone detected a Russian soldier resting in a pile of rubble. The Russian soldier, seemingly exhausted, did not notice the FPV drone approaching. In the first attack, the Russian soldier luckily dodged the initial strike and responded by firing at the drone. However, as the Russian soldier reloaded, the FPV drone quickly seized the opportunity to strike again, and this time, luck ran out, and the Russian soldier was eliminated. The FPV drone then continued to search for targets in a deeper trench. 2 Russian soldiers were moving through this trench, trying to avoid detection by the drone by hiding and moving along the trench. However, the FPV drone detected their position and approached closer. The 2 Russian soldiers panicked, fired their weapons, and tried to flee, but the drone quickly attacked and took them down. Another situation occurred when a Russian soldier was trying to take cover in a cluster of trees. This soldier appeared lucky, jumping out and avoiding the drone's initial attack. However, the FPV drone continued to search and attack the lost Russian soldiers, giving them no chance to escape. The next moment occurred during an attack on a Russian command post and ground UAV control station near the Kursk area, where a large-scale assault was executed by Ukraine's 79th Military Brigade. To ensure maximum effectiveness, Ukraine used destructive missiles in this attack. The video documenting the event clearly illustrates the devastating power of the missiles, showcasing the severe destruction caused by the strike. Following the explosion, the scene revealed no trace of the previously present command post. The entire facility was completely obliterated, demonstrating the extent of the attack's destructiveness. This devastation not only dealt a significant blow to the Russian forces, but also clearly demonstrated the precision and power of the Ukrainian military's strikes. The moment on the screen shows an impressive scene from the precise attack by the Ukrainian army. A drone carrying an artillery shell is speeding towards its target. Intelligence reports indicate that a group of Russian soldiers, linked with naval troops, is moving by boat, approaching the shore when a sudden attack occurs. From above, the drone observes and prepares to strike. The artillery shell is dropped accurately right in the middle of the small boat, directly above 2 Russian soldiers. This attack is completely precise and devastatingly effective. As a result, the two Russian soldiers are thrown into the river. The river's surface turns red, creating a gruesome and horrific scene. This imagery not only demonstrates the precision and effectiveness of drone attacks, but also highlights the brutality of war, where every moment can lead to tragic outcomes. In the settlement of Volchansk, a group of 4 Russian soldiers was moving north through houses and trails, very carefully to avoid detection. They were seeking shelter in a destroyed house, which appeared to be a temporary resting point for them. Every action of the group was recorded and closely monitored by the drone. When the soldiers stopped to rest or sought shelter in the ruined house, the drone seized the opportunity to attack. A drone equipped with artillery shells sped towards the target, and a large explosion occurred. The shell hit the group's position accurately, instantly destroying all 4 Russian soldiers. The surrounding area was filled with flying debris, creating a horrific and chaotic scene. In a dramatic video, a target appeared on the control screen of a Ukrainian drone. A Russian armored vehicle had backed into a small road by the forest. Upon identifying the target, the drone from Ukraine's Rubka unit of the 77th OOA EMBR launched a direct attack on the side of the armored vehicle. The attack caused a large fire and a powerful explosion, throwing the Russian soldiers into panic and forcing them to abandon their position. At the same time, another FPV drone attack located a large truck hidden deep in the forest, difficult to detect. The next scene shows the destruction of abandoned tanks and armored vehicles of the Russian army. The direct hits left no vehicle untouched, with dozens of armored vehicles being destroyed daily. Despite this, Russia continued its attacks, highlighting the senseless and futile nature of this war. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a group of Russian soldiers moving through a forest at the foot of a mountain. They were planning a covert attack on a Ukrainian military area. The groups of soldiers moved into the forest, but before their attack could take place, they were struck by a Ukrainian drone. The drone attack caused significant losses for the Russian army, with an estimated 200-300 soldiers being attacked. At night, the Russian army relocated, retreating towards the houses in the northern area of Donetsk. As the Russian soldiers tried to move away from the danger zone and find shelter in the houses in the northern Donetsk area, they were ambushed again, resulting in explosions and panic within their ranks.
Several turtle tanks on the attack. The Javelin is ready. That's a hit. The tank loses control. The next one hits the mine. All that's left is to finish them off. One Ukrainian drone and an APC is on fire. This drone flies right inside the APC. A magnificent fire show. You can also see this happen if the flames reach the ammo. And this is what happens when you fly right into the open hatch. The Ukrainians are also using drones to strike at Russian logistics. Take a look here. These are 2 cars and a truck that the Russian terrorists are using to move between their positions. The Ukrainian operator is pointing a drone at the most valuable one among them. This is an ammunition delivery vehicle right at the positions. After that, the Russian boys got a little down. The SUV with the Russian officers was heading back to headquarters. This time, they're not getting away. A drone attacks the vehicle. Ukrainians release another drone, and the SUV is destroyed. Now a regular feature, Buhanka Genocide. The drone failed to capture the first impact. The destruction of the second Buhanka was caught on video. The first drone stopped it, and the second drone destroyed it. Ukrainians forced the occupiers to walk. An FPV drone destroys the first UAZ ORV. It's followed by the second one. It's also destroyed. This Russian ORV put on quite a fire show. What happened next, I have to hide from you. A Kadyrov's Lynx armored vehicle. Well, it's time to teach you a lesson. Too bad those bastards weren't in the car. Those bunny boys got what they deserved. A drone crashes into the roof of a car and explodes. Do you think these Russians have gotten good? Another ORV. It'll be a burning mess in no time. Nice work. Oh, how I love to watch this video. The Russians arrived in position, but an unexpected plot twist awaited them. Enjoy this fire show. And here's how the K2 battalion caught Russian terrorists in a car while it was moving. 2 operators work together. One performs reconnaissance and observes the moving target, while the other controls the kamikaze drone and directs it on the first operator's tip. The drone crashes precisely into the windshield of the car and sends the driver to hell. What's the hurry? A kamikaze drone unexpectedly drops in on the Russian terrorists. How you feeling now, boys? Another Russian racer. He's doomed in this competition. A drone flies around the car and lands on the hood. Another one. The Russian APC is stopped by a small FPV drone. There's not much left. Hit the open hatch, and its fuel system is engulfed in flames. This tank needed more explosives. First strike. A second, and then a third. Or you can just hit the engine. As well as finishing it off with an ATGM. And this tank couldn't get out of the funnel of their own bombs. The pilot directs the drone into the open hatch, and boom! Thanks for the gift. The Ukrainian defenders have earned such skill with huge effort. And this is spring footage of a Ukrainian tank attack. They've only just recently released this footage. The tank is under heavy artillery fire. The AFU still continue to carry out the order. The enemy position is right here. Some seriously aggressive shelling. The tank fulfills its task and then successfully retreats. And here are your favorite Russian Buhankas. Drones turn around to get a better angle, right in the face. Another one. Incredible accuracy. You can see the Ghost Riders burning in the background. Check out the uncensored footage in the videos for our sponsors. This duel will go down in history. APCs are shelling the positions of the AFU, but they receive a warm welcome from a Bradley. The Russians stood no chance. They lose control and roll into a hole. Some sources say this is also a Bradley. Its gun is incredibly intimidating. The buildings of the invaders are crumbling under its assault. There's no resistance to this APC. They do whatever they want and escape successfully. AFU pilots are known for their accuracy. A precise hit to the engine and the tank voltex a column of Russian vehicles. We see 2 APCs and 1 tank. Artillery and cluster shells are trying to stop the vehicles. The first damage is done by a mine. A shot from a javelin. A precise hit right in the fuel compartment. The remaining tank has been neutralized by the drones. Just take a look at the result of this attack. Somewhere near Krasnohorivka, 5 turtle-armored vehicles have been spotted. They're splitting up. A drone strike. A jet of smoke is coming out of the tank. Several drone strikes, but no critical damage. We see a Ukrainian artillery firing at the same time. The first part of the column stops. A 155mm shell hits a tank. Panic and chaos ensues. On the horizon appear Baba Yaga drones. The vehicles are left to their fate. The attack has failed. The occupants learn nothing. 2 APCs drive on the same road where their own armored vehicles burnt recently. A Russian rusty saucepan explodes on a mine in the same place. Let's take a look at that again. The javelins were ready for this attack. A shot on the upper trajectory.
Look at this Russian APC. The crew has been tasked with breaking through the field and taking positions in the forest plantation to cover the arrival of the main forces. The APC is speeding, but the crew doesn't know that the fields around were mined by the Ukrainians during the night. The Russian APC completely self-destructed by hitting a mine. Later, the Russians sent several more APCs, but they all also hit mines and exploded. This Russian APC, with a strange exhaust pipe, somehow managed to avoid the artillery and drove the farthest. But it was struck by a Ukrainian FPV drone and destroyed. The Ukrainians had enough resources to destroy this column of Russian vehicles. Many tanks and APCs were abandoned by the Russians, as usual. One of the tanks that managed to reach the edge of the town was destroyed by a drone. Later, a Ukrainian soldier filmed this burning tank on his phone. A column of Russian tanks has moved out to attack in order to break through the Ukrainian defense and establish a new foothold for further infantry advancement. Very soon, they came under fire from Ukrainian artillery, but continued to move unscathed. The Ukrainians allowed the Russian tanks to approach a favorable distance for FPV drones, and here's what happened next. A Russian tank leads two APCs and continuously fires shells at the Ukrainian bunker they are approaching. Suddenly, the Ukrainians strike an APC in the center of the column with a javelin missile, causing the ammunition inside the vehicle to detonate. Meanwhile, as the tank continues to move forward, another Ukrainian FPV drone strikes another Russian APC, setting it on fire. But this is not the worst for the Russians yet. The tank also gets hit by an FPV drone but remains undamaged. The crew receives an order to retreat. The tank speeds up to leave the battlefield as quickly as possible, but takes another hit from a drone in the engine compartment. This forces the tank to stop, and the crew escapes. Angered, the Russians then sent another two tanks to the same place, one of which was a turtle tank. But just look at what happened. A precise drone strike turns the turtle tank into useless scrap metal. So, add another two tanks to the list of Russian losses. Additionally, to further frustrate the Russians, the Ukrainians tracked down and destroyed a Tu-S-19 self-propelled howitzer. However, the enraged Russians were already preparing a new wave of attacks. The crew of this Russian T-90 tank is demonstrating bravery. They accelerated the tank in an attempt to break through, but unexpectedly received a hit from an FPV drone in the engine compartment, which led to their stop shortly after. And of course, there's nothing easier in this world than blowing up an abandoned Russian tank. Wonderful. This team of Ukrainian drone operators definitely deserves a thumbs up from you for their flawless work. Look, a Ukrainian drone equipped with a powerful anti-tank grenade managed to fly right into the open hatch of the Russian tank through the pierced metal mesh. Clearly, no tank can remain intact after such a generous deed. Look at another Russian tank, the T-80, which tried to break through along the railway tracks. If the tank has no additional protection against drones, then it's definitely game over for it. Just look at how clumsy the Russians are. The tank and APC moved out on a mission, but ahead they encounter two Russian APCs that have been blown up by a mine. This means the area here is mined, but the Russians decide to take the risk. And they failed. The APC following the tank turned out to be even less fortunate. It got stuck in a crater and was destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone. In the Donetsk region, the Russians attacked at night but were hit by precise artillery fire. This turtle tank ran over a mine. In the morning, a Ukrainian drone came to finish it off. That night, the Russians lost several more tanks on the battlefield, including turtle tanks. Look at how the Ukrainian drones deal with the Russian turtle tanks. In one of them, all its ammunition detonated, turning it into a fireball. Later in the day, a swarm of Ukrainian drones tore apart another group of Russian armored vehicles. On the battlefield, there was even a T-62 tank spotted, which was built in 1962, when humans first went to space. Another APC was destroyed. Another tank was blown up. This tank hit a mine, was abandoned, and then destroyed by a dropped grenade. This is how the Russians lose dozens of armored vehicles daily. And despite all of this, they continue to go on offensive. This might be the most foolish and senseless war in history. Just imagine, Ukrainian forces have already destroyed more than 15,000 Russian armored vehicles of various types. And the Russian industry cannot keep up with producing more of them. The Ukrainians then remotely mined the road in front of the Russian APC, and at a certain point, it drove over a Ukrainian mine and exploded. Later, another Ukrainian drone set the APC on fire, and it was completely destroyed, thwarting the Russian mission. Discovered an SA-17 Grizzly surface-to-air missile system. The soldiers deployed a strike drone, which in an instant turned the equipment into a massive, spectacular explosion. The fuel in the missiles loaded on the system started to burn, and thick smoke rose into the air. The Russians tried to extinguish the fire, but they failed and realized they needed to flee. After a while, the remaining ammunition detonated. Just look at that fireworks display. Here you can see the SA-8 Gecko surface-to-air missile system, which the Russians tried to hide in the trees. However, they failed, and the artillery destroyed the equipment with a precise shot. This other air defense vehicle, the SA-13 Gopher, detected a reconnaissance drone and fired a missile at it, but it missed by a significant distance. At that moment, a kamikaze drone with a shaped charge warhead was already on its way to destroy it. The drone hit the target precisely, causing a detonation, and the vehicle began to burn. You are seeing drone footage that captured everything. The battery comprises 4 SA-21 Growler systems and a cheeseboard radar station, with a total value of $625 million. It is claimed that the system is supposed to detect and destroy ballistic missiles within a radius of up to 60 kilometers. The SA-21 Growler systems launched 6 missiles intended to destroy the target. At this moment, at an altitude of approximately 1 kilometer, the MGM-140 missile releases its cluster warhead equipped with submunitions. Another launcher fires, but almost immediately it is hit and detonates. Look at the massive explosions and the detonation of the ammunition. The area of impact is astounding. At this prepared position, an SA-10 Grumble air defense system is stationed. Usually, such systems are covered by SA-22 Greyhound units, but not in this case. Just look at that detonation. This can be described as a nuclear detonation of the SA-15 Gauntlet air defense system. Look at the enormous mushroom cloud rising into the air. This is a fairly rare Arctic SA-15 Gauntlet air defense system, worth about $50–60 million. Using a drone, the Ukrainian military targets it and fires a high-precision M982 Excalibur shell. A fire breaks out. The Russian soldiers try to extinguish the flames with a fire extinguisher but flee, realizing that the target is not yet fully destroyed and a follow-up strike is imminent. Their prediction comes true. The Ukrainians make another shot. The shell lands near the equipment, creating a small moon-like crater visible from the drone. In an open area, 2 SA-17 Grizzly systems were detected. Each system is worth around $260 million. The Ukrainian military delivered 2 precise strikes. The systems began to burn and detonate. Most likely, the Russians did not expect this equipment to be targeted. Otherwise, they would have at least tried to hide it in the nearby tree line. In this footage, an SA-17 Grizzly operates in tandem with a target illumination and missile guidance radar station. They are moving away from their position, but a drone catches up and strikes the SA-17 Grizzly. The radar station meets the same fate. The equipment is burning, and the crew abandons the vehicle and flees as far as possible. The SA-15 Gauntlet in an open area was also destroyed by a precise strike from the Ukrainian military. This SA-13 Gopher air defense system was attempted to be camouflaged in the trees, but the drone sees everything. The equipment was destroyed and continued to burn among the trees. In this footage, you can see the M142 HIMARS in action. An SA-17 Grizzly paired with a radar station moves into position. A reconnaissance drone tracks them to their location. Once the equipment is in position, HIMARS launches a rocket. The explosion sends everything flying spectacularly in all directions with glowing hot debris. And here is the work of Ukrainian artillery. An SA-17 Grizzly was spotted on combat duty with a full ammunition load. The artillerymen fired a shot, hitting the target precisely. The equipment exploded, causing one of its missiles to detonate and fly off on a random trajectory. The drone operator decides they need a fine for traffic violations and sends a kamikaze drone to deliver an explosive ticket directly to the radar station and the launcher. Later, the equipment was towed to the roadside impound lot, where it continued to burn. This air defense system was spotted by a drone among the ruins of an industrial site. Most likely, the Russian soldiers noticed they were being watched from the air and decided to relocate the equipment into one of the buildings. This building is industrial, and their structures are usually very sturdy, so deploying M142 HIMARS or artillery is not practical. It was decided to send a drone. The drone navigates through the damaged walls of the building where the SA-8 Gecko is located and strikes. In the reconnaissance footage, a lot of smoke can be seen coming from the building. Perhaps this is simply the destruction of expensive targets. Or maybe it is preparation for the arrival of F-16 aircraft, which Ukrainian pilots will receive soon. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And now, let's return to the battlefield. In the middle of a field stands an SA-8 Gecko. In the blink of an eye, this air defense system is struck by an artillery shell. There's literally nothing left of the equipment. Take a closer look. It's truly a heap of scrap metal. The vehicle moves into a densely vegetated area. The Russian soldiers think they have successfully camouflaged the equipment. Indeed, without tracking its movements, it would have been difficult to spot. They leave the vehicle and walk away. A short while later, artillery destroys the air defense system with 2 shots. When the soldiers return, they will find a well-camouflaged heap of useless, charred metal. Kursk region, Russia. The military is forming a convoy of at least 15 trucks. They feel safe on their territory because the border with Ukraine is still far away. Unexpectedly, a swarm of drones begins to attack them, striking the head and tail of the convoy. The equipment starts burning with thick black smoke. The Russians realize that their vehicles inside the convoy are blocked and could also be destroyed. They drive off the road into the field and disperse. The soldiers tried to hide the equipment among the bushes and trees, but where the eagle flies, the hare cannot hide. One by one, the drones start methodically destroying the equipment. This convoy was an important logistical component for the Russian forces in the city of Vovchansk. The key word is was. The Ukrainian military turned the trucks into burning heaps of metal in the field, which will no longer leave Russia. And here is the reason why this operation was successful.
A javelin missile hits an APC, which loses control and drives over mines. The attack is thwarted. Now, the Russian soldiers deploy a group of Frankensteins into battle. the Ukrainians managed to capture the second Russian tank in the video. Let's see if this add-on armor can protect the tanks. Ukrainians open fire with artillery. The group splits up. The first hit. The tank moves forward slightly and explodes on mines near a forest line. Ahead, this APC awaits an unexpected surprise. Mines stop the advance. The group retreats.